All right, so you know how we're always talking about data breaches and the absolutely insane costs involved?
Yeah, it's getting kind of ridiculous.
Well, you sent over this information about a company called TouchBrick, and honestly, it's like they're tackling this whole data security nightmare head on.
Yeah, I saw that. Pretty interesting stuff.
And the numbers are just, I mean, staggering. We're talking a projected cost of $10.5 trillion in 2025 from data breaches.
Trillion with a T.
It's mind-blowing. But TouchBrick, they're saying they have a way for companies to like automatically control and protect their data. And what we really want to dig into today is how their tech actually does that. What's the secret sauce?
I'm all ears.
Their big thing seems to be this fusion of AI and synthetic data, which they say can like eliminate data risk entirely.
Really?
And even unlock all this potential for like AI adoption and innovation.
Ambitious.
So our mission, if you choose to accept it, is to unpack how they're actually doing this.
Challenge accepted.
Perfect. So let's start with the basics. What are the big, hairy problems that TouchBrick is aiming to solve?
Well, one of the things that jumped out at me from what you shared is that, all those security measures companies have been relying on,
Right.
they're not really cutting it.
Not 100%, no.
Not even close, apparently. Like a whopping 86% of CISOs and CTOs they interviewed admitted that their current systems, they can't fully prevent data breaches.
Which is a bit unsettling, to say the least.
Totally.
It kind of highlights the limits of the traditional ways we've been thinking about security.
It kind
Like no matter how many walls you build, the
Yeah.
data itself is still the target.
Yep. And it's not just about the fear of a breach either.
Right. It's like this dark cloud hanging over innovation.
Exactly. Especially when you think about things like artificial intelligence and all the advancements we could be making with data.
Yeah.
But the sources we're looking at, they suggest that 3 out of 4 of these same folks, they said data compliance issues are straight up hindering their AI adoption. Yeah. It's like they're stuck.
Totally. They're sitting on mountains of potentially game-changing data, but all the regulations and the risks of actually using it, it's creating massive roadblocks.
It is. It's this constant tug of war between wanting to innovate and needing to protect sensitive information.
For sure.
And to add insult to injury, the time it takes to even deal with a breach when it happens is just.
Ugh, don't even get me started.
The averages are ridiculous, 245 days.
Like 445 days.
That's over 8 months where sensitive data could be just out there.
That's terrifying.
It is. So, with all that in mind, how in the world does TouchBrick think they can overcome these challenges?
Their secret weapon, if you want to call it that, is their AI agents.
AI agents.
Yeah. But we're not talking about your run-of-the-mill algorithms here.
Okay.
These are designed with a really deep understanding of what sensitive information actually is, and, even more importantly, how compliance requirements come into play.
So it's like context-aware AI. Totally. They're like these super smart software robots living in the data environment, constantly scanning and analyzing everything, always aware of what's sensitive, what regulations apply, all that.
Okay, so they've got these AI agents that can pinpoint the sensitive stuff. What happens next?
Well, once they've identified it, they create synthetic replacements.
Synthetic replacement.
Yep. And this isn't just about masking or anonymizing data in some superficial way. We're talking entirely new data points that are like artificially generated.
So it's fake data.
Kind of, but it's designed to perfectly mimic the real stuff. Like it maintains all the statistical properties and the overall integrity of the original data.
Nope, it's not actually real.
Nope. It's like having this digital twin of your data that you can use for all sorts of stuff, like analysis, training AI models, whatever you need.
And because it's not real, there's no risk of exposing actual customer info.
Exactly. It's like this whole protected indexed universe of data that's safe to use anywhere. No more security headaches.
That's pretty ingenious, actually. But how do they ensure that this whole synthetic data environment itself stays secure? What are they doing to actually protect it?
Well, security is clearly a top priority for them. One thing they emphasize is that anyone who needs access to this protected data, they got to have specific keys. And these keys, they're separately secured, so it's like multiple layers of security right off the bat.
And they're using some pretty high-tech ways of managing these keys, right?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned something called on-chain consensus verification.
And on-chain.
Yeah, so it's leveraging that whole distributed ledger tech, all the security and transparency of the blockchain.
Right, yeah.
And they also integrate with existing customer identity management systems.
Like Okta, for instance.
Exactly. So companies can basically keep using their current security infrastructure, which makes things a lot easier.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I got to ask about this quantum-resistant on-premise data vault thing.
Yeah, that caught my eye too.
They make it sound super secure, like Fort Knox for data.
Well, the key here is the multiple layers of protection. Like this vault, it doesn't have a single point of failure.
Right.
The first key, it's a blockchain-based signature. So you've got the immutability of blockchain tech right there.
Right.
And the second key, it's linked to your existing identity manager, which is familiar and, usually pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then the third key, this one's unique, generated specifically for that synthetic data.
So to actually get in, someone would have to crack 3 completely different types of security.
Pretty much. The fact that they're calling it quantum resistant, well, that tells you they're already thinking about the future of cryptography.
Like way ahead of the curve.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just about protecting the data, but also who gets to see it and how.
Got it. Now there's this whole other angle they talk about, this network effect through their protocol. What's that all about?
This is where things get really interesting. Their vision is that as more and more customers start using their protocol, all these systems can actually communicate with each other.
Hold on. Communicate.
Yeah.
Like talk to each other.
Yeah, but in a completely secure and private way, of course. It all happens on chain.
Okay.
But the idea is that they can collectively improve the accuracy of their models and get a much deeper understanding of how regulations are evolving.
So it's like a shared intelligence network.
Exactly. Everyone benefits from this massive pool of insights about data privacy and best practices.
It's like a community effort to fight cyber threats.
Kinda, yeah. Because as we know, cyber threats, they're constantly changing, and data privacy regulations,
Don't get me started.
they just keep getting more complicated. So this network effect, it helps everyone stay ahead of the curve.
Right.
And eventually, they believe it'll open up possibilities for secure third-party access to data,
Interesting.
and even allow developers to build apps on top of these completely anonymous data sets.
That's a whole lot of potential, but obviously we need to talk about real-world results. The information you sent over points to some pretty impressive early adoption, right?
Yeah, they've got some big names already. Like they highlight Fastweb, Italy's largest telecommunications company. And they're using TouchBrick to protect sensitive data for literally millions of customers.
Millions.
And they're doing all this while, supercharging their AI initiatives. They're not letting data privacy hold them back at all.
And they're not just saying that. There's a quote from their head of AI, Giovanni Germani, that really stood out.
What did he say?
He said, and I quote, "TouchBrick's data security doesn't just protect our assets. We're accelerating our AI initiatives with privacy and strict data governance. This is a game changer for our machine learning operations."
Wow, that's high praise.
It is, and it gets better. Their Q1 2025 performance, they booked $1.3 million in new software licenses.
What about?
That's double what they were forecasting. And get this, they also brought on 4 major enterprise clients in that same quarter.
Who were they?
Fastweb, obviously, but also Swisscom, Pulse One, and Core Plus.
Okay, so they're not messing around.
And they're projecting a $4.2 million annual run rate by Q1 2026.
Sounds like they're onto something.
Their average contract value has also been higher than expected. So they're securing some pretty significant deals.
Okay, color me impressed.
Right. And it sounds like they've been hard at work refining their product.
Yeah, they're definitely past the beta stage.
They say it's mature enough now for large-scale enterprise onboarding.
That's a big step.
They also talk about this agentic approach to cybersecurity. It sounds pretty sophisticated.
Well, basically, their system is smart enough to identify and respond to threats on its own.
So it's like having a security team that never sleeps.
Yeah. And it can even do some self-healing, automatically fixing certain vulnerabilities.
Ugh, that sounds like a huge advantage, especially with the way threats are evolving. So how are they getting this solution out to businesses?
They've got a multi-phase approach. Phase 1 is all about partnerships.
Partnerships.
Yeah, they're working with MSPs and big channel partners like Ingram Micro, SHI, PwC, CDW.
Makes sense. Leverage those existing relationships.
Exactly. They've got an annual licensing model, which works well for that.
Smart. What about phase two?
That's all about direct marketplace distribution. They want to make it super easy for businesses to adopt their solution.
Click and deploy, that sort of thing.
Yep. Pay as you go based on how much data you need to protect.
Flexible.
And they're also developing a developer SDK and integrations with various marketplaces.
Oh, so they're thinking about the developer community too.
Definitely.
And phase three, it seems like that ties back into the network effect we talked about earlier.
Right. Phase 3 is about leveraging the full power of their token-based protocol combined with the B2B transactions and the growing AI intelligence they're building.
So it's about creating a whole ecosystem.
Essentially, yeah. Secure and accessible data for everyone.
Ambitious. Now let's talk about the people behind all this. The leadership team. That can tell you a lot about a company's potential.
I agree, and they've got some serious talent.
Yeah, their CTO, Jason Mello, he's a two-time unicorn tech entrepreneur.
No kidding.
He founded Paxos, the first U.S.-regulated crypto exchange. So he definitely knows how to navigate tricky regulatory landscapes.
That's valuable experience.
And their head of partnerships, they've led channel strategies for Microsoft and Cisco. So they know the ropes.
Perfect for their phase 1 strategy.
Right. And they've made some key additions to their leadership team. Steve Dufour, as Director of Business Development, he comes from the enterprise Web3 space.
Interesting.
And Sebastian Blandon, as their Chief AI Officer, he's going to be leading their AI and data innovation efforts.
Sounds like they're building a real powerhouse team.
They also got accepted into Plug and Play's portfolio.
Oh, wow, that's a big deal.
Huge. They were one of only 4 companies selected out of 116.
So they've got access to a massive network of partners and investors.
Yep, and they just opened an office in Silicon Valley, too.
Smart move.
All right, so last question. How does TouchBrick stand out in what is clearly a crowded market?
Well, they've got a few key differentiators according to the info we have here.
Lay it on me.
They're doing some unique things with synthetic data tokenization.
Tokenization.
Yeah, and they're using AI to automatically identify sensitive data.
Makes sense.
Plus, they can handle unstructured data, which is a big deal.
It is.
And then you've got their secure data vault technology.
Right.
And maybe most importantly, they've got a deep understanding of all those different regulatory frameworks.
Like PII, HIPAA, GDPR, all those acronyms.
Exactly. So it's like they've combined all these features to create a much more comprehensive and adaptable solution.
So for you, our listener, here's the bottom line.
Hit me.
TouchBrick is trying to revolutionize data security. They're using AI in a really smart way to identify sensitive information, and then they create these synthetic replacements that preserve privacy but maintain data integrity.
And they're not just talking the talk, they're already working with some major players.
Right, and their leadership team is packed with experienced people who know what they're doing.
And their go-to-market strategy is well thought out.
So here's something to ponder. With data breaches becoming more common and costing businesses a fortune, and with AI relying so heavily on data, could solutions like TouchBrick be the key to a more secure and innovative future?
It's a question worth asking.
Food for thought. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.